Okay, we're on the way up now. Machining's all done. I've fitted the rings, base gasket, dowels are in the bottom, dowels are in the top. So the next is the head gasket. Before the head gasket, we need to put the slipper in. The forward slipper goes in a little slot in the bottom and the little slot in the top. Then the head gasket. So something slightly different here. The original one had like an extended dowel. This is the feeder stud for the oil to the cylinder head, and it had a bigger diameter on the barrel. I'll show you. So there was like a square sectioned O-ring in here. We don't have it on this barrel, and we probably don't need to, but I've got an O-ring which fits on the outside of the dowel. He said, voila, and on the inside of the hole of the gasket. So that's going to work. So the head we've reworked already. You have to remember to put that stud in, and I think you can fit these afterwards. This is the non-drive side of the chain slipper, but you may as well. And we know that this is in the right position because we can turn it from there to there, and the little dowel peg is like at 5'2", so the head is ready now to go on. Obviously the surfaces have all been cleaned. I'll just give it another wipe before we go, and we're ready to drop it on. So let the slipper drop down, line up the studs, and as this thing comes down you have to kind of like tease it past the lumps inside there, and that's sat down. The dowels have lined up, so it can now fit the head nuts. So the head nuts, before they go on, they have special washers underneath them which are quite thick to spread the load, but also they've got like a coppered finish, because we know that this one at the back here is the one which is carrying the oil up that feeds the camshaft, cam followers and cam pivots. So I've got new dome nuts, and the only reason I've got new dome nuts that they came in the stainless steel engine bolt stud kit. So they go on. And they are size wise 13, and the one at the front here, this one, you've got quite a bit of heavy cast aluminium near it, so I can't get in with an ordinary 3/8 drive socket, so I've got this long series 3/8 drive 13mm. So they're in, and I'm just going to give them a squeeze because I can. Just a bit of tension, corner to corner. So we're on. So I just need to get the torque loading figure for those. I've got them on a sheet somewhere, so let me find it, get the torque wrench out. I'll be back in a second. So I've got the torque loading figures from the manual. So these are in kilogram meters, so kilogram force per meter long, 1.8 to 2. So I'm going to pick the highest one because I can, and obviously for Newton meters we're going to just times it by, it's 9.8, isn't it? So I'm just going to double it, times it by 10. So I'm going to go for 20 Newton meters. So let's have a go. Okay. So it looks like we're done. Happy. And obviously always wind off your torque wrench when you're finished, because the spring will weaken and the settings will go off. So head's pulled down. Next job is to get the chain in, but make sure before you do that, let me just drop you down so we can capture this a little bit better. Okay, in the where the bottom sprocket is, you've got this little bit of pressed steel which always ends up getting bent as the chain tries to jump if it's not been adjusted correctly, slack chain, and this thing stops the chain jumping off the bottom sprocket. So you've got to take that off, leave that off, and obviously leave the slipper adjuster off just to make life a bit easier. So the chain, feed him in from the top, let gravity take him down, and we're in, and we're down, and then when we're down you can actually just hinge the chain over the crankshaft and the camshaft. So the next is the sprocket. So keep this off the sprocket here at the bottom and feed your chain on to the sprocket and just roll it round, and then bring your mark, so we've got a little notch at the top here, so bring your 0 over it and then drop the sprocket back off, but trying to maintain that position. Then you can hook the chain onto the sprocket, lift it back up and see where you are. So I'm on top dead with the woodruff key facing exactly at 180, and I'm a tooth out, and I want to come round by 1 tooth that way. So just move them across 1, and now I should be about there. So there's my 0, there's the notch. So I think I'm 1 tooth the wrong way, so I'm going to go back 1. And that now is right on it. So you just have to tease this up a little bit to get it on the ledge of the camshaft, and it's on. And happy with the bottom there, woodruff key dead up, happy with that, but the camshaft is malaligned at the moment, no problem. We just rock the crank back in 2, the camshaft will stay where it is and your hole will line up. So all I've done here, I've just put the bolt in with a socket on it so I can move the crankshaft in one direction or the other. So there's my hole. So I'm just going to feed the bolt in, he said. And we're in. And I'm just going to pull everything back so it's lined up. So there's my Woodruff key at 180, and there's my alignment of the mark for the 0. So that is as it should be. I'm just going to get some Loctite now. We have to Loctite these in and torque them up. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, a bit of a time lapse for you guys, but about 4 hours out of sync here. Had to do a rush job, which is now done. Got paid in the pub, which is always a good idea. So I'm a few hours out of sync. Nothing for you guys. But we did torque up these to 0.8 or 1.2 kilogram force meters, which is about, times it by 9.8 or whatever. So I've just go for 10 Newton meters, job done. Bit of Loctite. And this little fellow here, which is the keeper for the, in case you skip a link, when the chain is going to stretch. If you don't keep adjusting it correctly, it'll stretch and there's a chance it might jump a link. This thing here is to stop it, this little keeper plate. So make sure it's 90 degrees because it generally bend down a little bit. Same for that one. So I've just done it, should be good. And we're in. So now we're up to the cam chain adjuster. So on the cam chain adjuster, let's just see if I can get you in a little closer. Maybe perhaps drop you down a bit and bring you in a bit. Maybe perhaps. So the cam chain adjuster, this thing here, and our cam chain adjusting device which goes between the slipper and the adjuster. There's 2 washers. Lift up the top washer and offer that between the 2 washers, and now you have to play around with the adjuster to make it catch, if I can find my screwdriver. So I've got my washers separated, one top, one bottom, he said, and we're in. And now I just need to adjust this to pick up on that central plane. So down a tad, up a tad. We'll get there in a second, getting close, and it should just slide in about now, he said. And we're in. So the top bit's in the fork, washer above, washer below, and the peg has gone in. So the rule of thumb with this, it says in the book to adjust until there's no noise. But what I generally do is adjust it so I cannot push the chain against this bearing retainer here. You generally have spattle scars here where they've been rubbing, so I can touch it there. I'm going to back it off a bit and bring it back. Still can touch. Getting there. bit more. Try the other way. Excuse me. Yeah, if I'm coming out, it's going to tighten it, obviously. Going the wrong way. This was C solid, this adjuster, by the way. If you don't put the little rubber cap back on, getting close. If you don't put the little rubber cap back on here, so it's water gets down the threads, not good. So now I cannot push it against this aluminium lug here, just not. So I'd be happy with that. I would lock that up at that. I'm not going to lock it yet, but and I haven't got the rubber bung that goes on there, but I have got a bit of plastic dome cap. That would do the job for that for me. I've got to lock it up yet, but still not quite there. So I'm happy with everything in there now. Tight, the camshaft tight, woodruff key exactly to 180, and our notch and the 0 all lined up. So that now it should be good. So let me pull you back a little bit, and now to make sure we've got it right, we use our 14mm spanner in the direction of rotation, and we need to do a couple of full turns. One full turn of the engine, the ratio camshaft on all 4 strokes is 2 revolutions of the crank, 1 revolution of the camshaft. So you make sure nothing is catching, nothing is hitting, nothing is striking, then you know you're going to damage anything when you try to start it. So I'm very, very happy with that. So all that now, head's torqued down, camshaft sprockets tightened and torqued, the device that stops the chain skipping is torqued, the adjuster's in. I've not locked that up, I should do. Let me do that now. Just a touch. So now we're at the point where we can we've accurately timed the valve timing. Now we're going to accurately time the ignition timing. So we need to throw a few more bits on now to get everything lined up perfectly off the marks off the stator and the rotor. So we'll be back in a second when we've got all the bits on there. Okay, we're roughly in position for a few bits and pieces. So the first bit would be the stator. So still got my 180 on this and my 0 lined up here with the camshaft. So stator in, roughly. So obviously I've treated myself to the stainless steel M6 cap screws instead of the JIC cross-headed screws. So I'll just pull this in roughly. And now, because I can physically use my torque wrench, I can actually torque these up. So you're looking at M6, just as a general ballpark figure. We're looking at 10 Newton meters for M6 standard pitch. So here we go. 10 Newton meters. So there is a bonus to getting rid of the JIC crosshead screws. And there we go. So that's in. So now for the rotor. So the rotor, I generally put it in a bit of a plastic bag to stop the iron. If you're generally like me, filing and grinding and all the rest of it, it'll get covered of iron filings, anything you're filing or rubbing down or whatever. So if you put it in a plastic bag, it just keeps the iron filings off it. So taper's clean, and we can go for our woodruff key approach. And there we go, and we're in. And our 10mm bolt. I'm just going to pull this down roughly when I can find the spanner for it, which I just had the other moment ago, which I've now lost. Just let me come back to this in a second, and we'll gun this up. We'll cheat and use the rattle gun. Oh, but in the meantime, so yes, the problem with the cap screw kit is you swap this long bolt for a cap screw, so you have to cut down. Not too bad while the AR unit's not on, but I got plenty of these things. Cut one down to get in there, and again give it your 10 Newton meters plus or minus half a brick. Job done. So let me build the compressor up. We'll be back in a second. So here we are now, just before we drop the stator and the rotor in. We have perfect alignment. Let me get the straight edge. So there's our relationship between the 0 and the notch, and the woodruff key is all in alignment. Everything is straight up and down. So we know we're roughly in the right area. So stator on. And one of these was a long bolt, wasn't it? Can't remember. The one marked L, of course, was the one with the long bolt. Here we go. So just really holding that in position for a moment. Then we can put our rotor on, aligning with the woodruff key, of course. So now we can fit our bolt, which I'm going to use the rattle gun to tighten up, which there is a torque loading figure for it, but I'll struggle to hold the engine still. So there's T is top dead centre, and there's our 0 right on that mark, so we know all that is good. So just let me hit it with the rattle gun for a second. So F for forward, and there we go. JD, job done. So I'm just going to pull it back, or let's rotate it in the natural direction of rotation, which is in that direction. There's our T for top dead centre, there's our 0, there's our mark. So I'm happy. So now I can pull all this stuff down when I find the appropriate missing screw, which I can't see anywhere. So there's our 10 Newton meters for these things. And let me find the other screw, which is obviously dropped on the floor somewhere. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, found him. There he is. Spin him up first. And 10 Newton meters. And that is that bit done. So now we need the housing for the advanced and retard unit, already pre-greased. The right way up, obviously, where the clue is where the cable comes out. A little bit each side, so we're not going to damage or cut into the O-ring, and we're in. Again, our 10 NMs, Newton meters. Now the AR unit. So there's our little peg, which it locates in this notch here. So I should be able to hold now the crank while I knit this up with the appropriate socket. Hands are greasy. Gotcha. 10 Newton meters, M6. Whoops a daisy, come on baby. It won't work with an 11, will it? I don't know why I've got the 11 out. Oh, I know. I was using it as a spacer on the for turning the crank. There we go. Okay, and now we can drop our points plate in, which is already set because we've already gapped it, and all we needed to do was fine tune it. Points plate in, and that was our mark, the little casting mark there. So it's just a rough setting, the start point, because we're going to fine tune this. So washers underneath, so when we tighten the screws up it doesn't twist the plate. So I'm just going to nip them, and that's the start point. So I'm just going to quickly look anyway. So we're on natural direction of rotation is anti-clockwise from this side. So it should be starting to open now, and it isn't. Or it is. But what we're going to do, we're going to fine tune it anyway. Yeah, it's about right, I think. but we're going to fine tune it, so let me set up for this and then we'll be back. So we're getting close now, so I'll see you in a short while. Okay, we're set up for the ignition timing. If you remember, we previously set the points on the last vid, and there was our mark, basic static timing mark. Points are set, so we're going to be in the roughly in the right position. So let's put this back on there, and we need top dead center, but it's got to be top dead center not on valves rocking, but on compression stroke. So if we put the rocker caps are still off, I put my fingers on the rockers, there's our top dead center mark T. If I move this back and two now, the inlet and the exhaust valve are rocking back and two, so that TDC we don't want for ignition timing. So natural direction of rotation, in this case this side of the engine, is anti-clockwise. There's the arrow, so we're going to bring it right round to the next T mark for top dead center. So at some point, because I've got my battery hooked up, it's a 12 volt bulb but a 6 volt battery, so it's going to be a bit dim without that touching the frame, because it'll only come on at some point. Now the points should be closed and the bulb should come on, so we're on. So we're not interested at what point that the points close at. When the points are closed, obviously it's making the circuit through the bulb because it's earthing through the points. It's when we break the connection at the points that the spark is going to occur. So I've got my T top dead center, and the one just before it, because we're coming in this direction, is the F mark, which is the fire mark, static. And that bulb we need the bulb to go out about now. So if everything is set correctly, the points gap and the original manufacturer's mark on the stator plate and the timing chain on this side is tight because we're turning it in that direction. If you turn it backwards, you'll get a different reading because you've got the slack side of the chain. The drive side of the chain is this side. So that timing is absolutely perfect without even, just by using the basic marks on the engine, and I'm very happy with that. So that is enough to get the bike started. We could go mad when we've got it running, and because these marks here, I don't know which one is which. These are the full advance marks, so when the engine reaches maybe, I don't know, 3 or 5 or 7,000 RPM, I've not seen any figures for it, then with a strobe light these should line up, because you're measuring the full advance on the advance and retard mechanism underneath here. But as far as we're concerned, that is as close as you're ever going to get it statically. It's perfect, in fact. Yeah, very pleased with that. So just got a few more bits of casing to put on, but we're nearly there. So we'll be back in a second when I've got rid of all this stuff. Okay, we're close to finishing. So that top cover can now go on, which I think I've got the appropriate gasket for, which is shaped. That's the one. And obviously now I've got my Allen key bolt whatever kit. It's a lot simpler going back and easy to undo things because you're not struggling trying to find the right JIS, Japanese Industry Standard screwdrivers. Nice. So this thing just has a big square O-ring on it, which you get in the gasket kit. So I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on this, just to help it. It'll also help the outer cover to slide over the top of it as well. So just a tad. There we go. And I may as well just do these cables while we're here. So the neutral switch, you push the little collar back against the spring, and that should just poke through the hole like so, and you've got to make sure it goes in that gap there. We're not going to crush it when we put the case on. And then the cable tidy or clamp here. So cable inside, and that's against there. Here. And the case. So again, I'm just going to put a tad of grease just on the entry face. Make sure there's no grit in there. I've cleaned these up obviously. Just to smear, just to help the square section dome ring sit. Pull him up a bit square before I wind the others in. And a bit easier than a screwdriver, that's for sure. Making sure my cable's out of the way. In fact, there is another channel for that, which I've just spotted. It actually sits in there, doesn't it? So that comes out and sits in there. I've just pulled it out of the connector. Well done. And we're back. So yeah, that sits like that in there. Cover again, you get a new O-ring in the kit, and I'm just again going to put a light smear of grease on it. Voila. I have cleaned these, the groove is all nice and clean. She's a bit tight going on, but she'll go. Try not to twist the O-ring. And we're on. And again, just a little smear on the outer edge, just to because if you remember, when I pulled this apart, there was a big chunk missing out the O-ring, wasn't there? So I'll just line it up first. And we're on. Something like that. So that is close now. So I think we're done all the way around now. Oh, obviously put some oil in there, a litre of 30 weight. Okay, so last bit. This was the kit, AliExpress, big bore kit. But if you see here, it definitely says that it's for the SL125. In fact, it's in twice. Maybe the giveaway is, though, just looking at this here, 76 to 85. Well, they stopped making the SL in 1975, so that could be a giveaway, or whether that relates to something else, I'm not sure. Anyway, I paid 42 quid for it. That was including the shipping. I got a deal on the shipping because I also this was it. DVNOP, whoever they are, or if you can speak this, DIWEINUOPU, Dwinyelope, whoever they are, international. I mean, the kit was, it was good quality stuff, really well made, very well machined, ring gaps and everything was good. It just didn't fit. But anyway, we've made it fit. But for an extra 18 quid, I couldn't help myself. Just let's pan you down a tad. I got this included. It was free shipping because the other stuff was coming. And this is the standard bore kit. So again, light cylinder block, piston, rings, gudgeon pin, gaskets, blah de blah, whatever. So that was only an extra 18 quid for that. So just in case, when I come to sell the bike, if somebody wants to buy it who's not got or going to be doing the CBT or whatever, obviously now it's not legal for a CBT because it's 144 cc's instead of 124 or whatever. Yeah, it would only take an hour to fit that, wouldn't it? I'm hoping the piston crown is a lot flatter, so I'm hoping if I ever do need to fit it, the piston crown will fit and the pockets in the valves. So anyway, engine is done, and nothing else to say on it really apart from putting it back in. But unfortunately, I said I wasn't going to do any work on the frame until I'd finished the engine, dropped it in so we could test it. Unfortunately now the frame's in a million pieces, so that's not going to happen. So the next vid is going to be starting work on the frame and the other bits and pieces before I can get the engine dropped in and give it a run, see how the big bore kit goes, and yeah, bit of feedback. So we'll speak to you guys on the next video. See you later, folks.